Economic projections are challenging at any time. But in these uncertain, uncharted waters, it's a whole new world. But if anybody could give it to us, it's the ATA's Bob Costello. We turn to Bob at this time, and this is what Bob had to say. Bob, economic projections are challenging enough in normal times. These are far from it. What have you been seeing now, and what do you expect in the near term from this?
Well, you're exactly right. I always say that forecasting is a lot of data science and a little bit of art. It's right now it's a lot of art and a little bit of data science. There's no doubt. So we've sort of seen a complete cycle from this thing already. A lot of fleets had strong freight, not all. A lot of fleets had really strong freight in March around grocery stores and big box retailers. And then other fleets were telling me, my freight is dried up, right? And it's the factory I haul to, they're closed. So we've now seen where even the strong freight has slowed down to more normal levels. But what's also happening is the fleets that didn't have as much freight, they're moving over, gravitating to where there is freight. So there's more competition in those lanes, in those supply chains. And it's getting, it's really tough environment now. And in many cases, we've seen a freight cliff, right? Just, I've talked to fleets that have said, I'm hauling 50, 60, 80, 90% less freight than I did even back in February. Yeah. So it's gotten to be a pretty difficult situation. Now, there's some of these areas that are starting to come online. What I would just caution everybody is, I think it's going to be a slow slog. Because even if you have areas that open up, restaurants are not going to go to full 100% anytime soon. Tourism and travel is still going to be down. Even factories that could start to open up, they may require parts or inputs from another area that is closed. So they're not going to be able to manufacture as much. So I think even in that case, you're going to see it's going to be a little slow going for a while.
Bob, one of the big issues for the last several years has been drivers, supply of drivers. Any thoughts on what this is going to do to shake that up at all?
Yeah. Well, in the short term, the driver shortage went away. And it has nothing to do with the reasons why we had a driver shortage. It has everything to do with the bottom falling off on freight. And as a result, we really don't have a driver shortage. I'm guessing, I haven't quantified it, but, I seriously doubt we have a driver shortage at this point. With that said, when freight gets good and we get back to some sort of normal times, the driver shortage is going to come back with a vengeance. And I really believe that because, I don't see the schools being able to train nearly as many new drivers this year either. So the pipeline there's going to be fewer in the pipeline. So I think, gone for now, shortage for drivers, but coming back probably as bad as ever when we get back to some sort of normal activity.
Long term, Bob, to the extent you can take a look at it, things in the industry you think have changed and are irreversible at this point?
Well, I don't know in the industry. I do think the economy has changed. It really sped up some things that were already in place, right? For example, online purchasing. I've talked to some companies, not trucking companies, but I've talked to some shippers who said, we were growing online pretty decently, 15% a year. At a minimum, we're growing 40% year over year right now. And some days we're at 100% year over year, right? As we all sit at home and shop that way instead of going to the store. I'm also thinking, we all got so used to getting our goods in 2 days or less. Yeah. That's not happening now. So I'm wondering if that's an opportunity for these online retailers to sort of push back on, that was probably not sustainable. So now can we add a couple days to that? Is it now going to be 4 days or less, right? I don't know, but I'm thinking these are some things that are likely to happen.
And in terms of trucking company survivability, Bob, anything you're seeing now on that depend on the freight that they handled, setup or anything like that?
Boy, it's a challenging environment. I am worried. I am worried about some of these fleets. When you see shippers, first there's less freight, then there's downward pressure on many rates. Not all over, and certainly it's bid season in many cases. And then some shippers are pushing out payment terms. I mean, we all know this in our industry. This is a high cash flow, low margin industry. And if that cash flow disappears, I don't know how you're going to survive. Many fleets will survive. Now, with that said, there's been one lifeline for sure, and that's some of these government programs that could, help and especially if this is a short sort of thing, and by, third quarter we're flattish, and by fourth quarter we could, if we solve the health part of this, we could be doing quite well. That's a big if we can solve the health part. But I am worried about some fleets going out of business. The other thing is, what do lenders do? Used truck pricing is down. If I'm a lender, I'm like, well, do I go and repo all these trucks and this company goes out of business, but then what am I going to do with the trucks? So there are some, if you took away the federal programs that are now in place, and just told me that you're going to see a 20, 25, 30, 35% drop in the U.S. economy in one quarter, I'd say, oh my God, we're going to see trucking companies go out of business in droves. With that said, I do think that capacity will leave the industry, right? But I'm saying it may not be as bad as it would have been without those lifelines. We'll have to wait and see. I still think there's going to be some exiting out of the industry.
Bob, thank you so much for your insight and your time. Greatly appreciated.
No problem.